freaking times I had to get sick. It had to be during my 100th episode. Oh well, no sense crying over spilled milk. Let's talk about my 100th episode review and what it is I'm going to be reviewing today. It is by far my most requested item to date, and what is it exactly? Cowboy Bebop. Now, Cowboy Bebop follows a tale of a few bounty hunters aboard the ship known as the Bebop by the names of Spike Seagull, Jet Black, Faye Valentine, and Ed. I can't even pronounce Ed's full name because that would take forever. And during the course of the storyline within Cowboy Bebop, we come across several misadventures across a number of colorful characters that involve either their past catching up with them, either individual character-wise or a whole team coming together, or if it's about hunting down a certain bounty in order to make a living for themselves. I can't even begin to tell you folks how many times I have been requested to talk about and review Cowboy Bebop. From personal messages to Facebook to Twitter to Skype, you name it, I have been asked to talk about Cowboy Bebop for months. And so I wanted to originally wait until the Blu-ray transfer was done, and I wanted to see it in its full HD glory, and that way I could see why exactly is this show so popular. And I decided, you know what, screw it. I'll pick up the DVDs and I'll watch it myself, because if the show is good, I really don't need to see it in an HD quality, even though I would like it to give the best chance it could and to visually impress me. And even so, with the remix collection that I watched from, this show is still very impressive. I must say, I enjoyed this show quite a bit. Now let me make something perfectly clear before I begin my actual review. I would fully recommend this anime to anybody if you are more curious about the style and what it could do, or if you want to see an anime that could be taken seriously. However, as I was watching the series and progressively getting through it, while there were a lot of stuff in it that really did work, and I was thinking, this is great, I love this, and it works so well, there's one issue, one small issue, that if it wasn't there, I would recommend this again, without hesitation. I still do, but there's one small caveat to this, and here we go. Let's start with the good. The first thing I noticed immediately as the show began is that the music is fantastic. Yoko Kanno's score is absolutely wonderful. The opening theme, Tank, all the music, a mix of jazz and blues, absolutely wonderful. It's something I don't normally see in a sci-fi, and it's actually a very refreshing take on it. The presentation alone still holds up fairly well today. There are some CG elements in there that you can tell is a little bit CG, but I'm not one of those people that nitpicks to death CG unless it's really bad CG, like Mortal Kombat Annihilation CG bad. But this one, it was like, yes, this still holds up. Every little bit of the art style looks great, all the characters look distinct and memorable. There's even some side characters within the show that you remember instantly, even though, personally, some of them can be a little bit annoying, like Andy the Cowboy, who I wanted to deck as soon as I saw him, or the old men that constantly pop up, maybe in one episode or another, and it kind of makes you wonder, where the heck did these guys come from? They shouldn't be here at all. But at the same time, you still remember them, and they're still fun to listen to and watch. Another really big positive for this show is that you learn a little bit about the past and the background of each of the characters on board the Bebop. If you guys remember my Black Lagoon review from several months back, I mentioned in that review that some of the problems with that show was the fact that Rock and Revy felt like they were the centerpieces of the show, and Dutch and Benny were not really meant to be there. They didn't do all that much. Whereas in this series, a big improvement over Black Lagoon, and I apologize for the comparison, but I felt like this was necessary in order to explain the point, is that with Rock and Revy, you understood why they were doing what they do because of their backgrounds. You don't find out much about Dutch and Benny. Whereas everyone in the Bebop, you understand why they're there. They want to make a living for themselves. They have something that they have in mind, that each of them has a sort of end goal, or why is it they are aboard this ship in the first place. This gives a chance for someone as a reviewer to have any one of these four members as a person to attach to and grow fond of and grow an adventure while you're in space with them. Another factor that a lot of people have been telling me to look into with regards to this show in particular is the English dub. Now, let me make this clear that I'm not one of those people that sees a point in hating on dubs all in general, because I don't see a point in hating on a language that I use. Now, I will admit, there are some characters and presentations where the dub for them doesn't exactly work because it doesn't fit for the personality of the characters. However, I do not fault that for the voice actor, I fault that for the casting director. However, within the case of Cowboy Bebop, every single one of these characters worked perfectly. The voices matched, the personalities fit the way that they talked, and it all worked. It was very spot on, and I admit, this is among one of the better dubs I've ever seen. It is really good, and I would highly recommend anyone watching this. However, there is one small element, one tiny thing that occurs in a few episodes throughout the series that just lowers it just a tad, just a bit. And I really don't want to upset fans who really love this series, because if you love this series, by all means enjoy it. It is a really good show. But there's one thing I noticed while analyzing the show that didn't exactly work and that hindered the overall quality of the show, and that is this element. Certain things within the storyline are never explained or given proper context and build up as to why or how they happened. Let me give you one example. One episode involving an assassin by the name of Piero, which occurs later on in the series. Now, the build-up for this villain and the backstory they give him does make sense of how he became a psychotic, raving lunatic that kills because he enjoys it. However, it doesn't properly explain how does he get the abilities that he does. It does explain how he went crazy and how he became a really psychotic maniac, but it doesn't explain how he's able to float and fly around with incredible speed and finesse. It just doesn't explain that. And you never get an answer for it for the rest of the series. And it's not like he's set up to be a ghost. It's not like he's set up to be this, like, psychological villain or something along those lines. No, he is an actual person that it could be killed and hunted, but it never explains how he was able to do what he does. Yeah, you can get a sense that he could get all the guns, but how the heck does he fly around being as heavy as he is? Now, if there was some explanation as to say, like, maybe his whole suit was filled with helium or something like that, something that would allow him to float or something that would allow him to be able to levitate, then that would make sense. That would be fine. That would be a suitable explanation. I mean, sure, it would be a little bit hard to believe, but at the same time, this is an anime. You can get away with pretty much anything. So my bottom line comes down to this. The score is fantastic from Yoko Kanno. Absolutely wonderful. The mix of jazz and blues really add to the atmosphere and the style of the show, and it works perfectly. The English dub, very, very good, and I would highly recommend anyone watching this in English. As for the art style, it still holds up really well today. Even though there's some elements of CG that you can tell are CG, it really doesn't matter that much in the context of the show because it's still overall really good in terms of presentation. However, with some of the characters, while you do get a lot of backstory, it's all really good. You find out a little bit about each of them and you care about them along this way. There's some episodes that don't exactly have a great setup or context as to why or how things happen. Granted, the end goal and the end result is really good. It's just little speed bumps along the way that cause it to go down just a small bit. So with all of this said, with the positives that I mentioned, this one small thing that just didn't overall work, I would love for this thing to be gone. Believe me, I wish I could ignore it. I really do. Because I really do think that this is a good show, and it is worth watching. However, with that said, I have to be objective in saying this has not been properly explained or set up, and it just hinders the show overall from what could be a perfectly smooth, cohesive, flat, great surface to something that's a little bit bumpy at points, but overall still enjoyable to watch. So I have to give Cowboy Bebop the rating of it is absolutely worth watching, but it is not perfect. So there you go, folks. That is my review of Cowboy Bebop. I hope you enjoyed it. Comment below and tell me what your favorite moment in Cowboy Bebop was, if you have seen the show, and if you have not seen the show, are you more curious about seeing it now that I've made a review for it? Again, comment below and tell me what you think. I'll take any requests that you throw at me. So until next time, everybody, I'm Perry the One-Armed Legend. I'll see you later.